Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're back again with our OWASP Project Spotlight series for this year, and we have covered almost 25 projects. So we're really glad that OWASP has over 200 projects. And if you don't know, you should check out the series for sure. So today I have Kevin Johnson with me, who's been working with OWASP for like literally ages. He's been contributing to the project committee, to a project leader, to whatnot. Like he's been doing so much with OWASP, and he's going to be speaking about Samurai WTF. So I'm going to stay quiet. I'll let him speak more about him and the project. Over to you, Kevin.
Yes, I've been with OWASP for ages because I'm old, fat, and lazy. And so I love OWASP. I think OWASP is one of the most important organizations we've got. And I would say that even if I wasn't on an OWASP recording. So, but so we're talking about Samurai WTF today. And Samurai WTF, which this is a project that I've been working on for, oh my gosh, almost 15 years. And I've got a team of people helping me, which is great. They're smarter than I am. I'm the idiot on the group. And so what Samurai WTF does is, and WTF stands for Web Training Framework. And we used to call it the Web Testing Framework. So originally, Samurai was created to give application security people, application developers, a live environment that they could use to test their stuff. Because back then, 15 years ago, we're talking back in the web scarab days, right? Like, which Zap is so much better now, but let's not go there. And but it was a lot of developers, a lot of security people. The security people came up from network security. The developers weren't focused on security as much. And so having a testing environment was very important. Over the last decade plus, almost 15 years, what we've realized is that it while yes, it works as a live environment, the main focus that we have done is tried to move it to a learning environment. Right? Not a, here's a class you have to go through and do that, but a place for you, whoever you are, to explore tools, vulnerabilities, exploits, so that you can truly understand how these things work, right? And so what we've been doing is we're building it. It's completely built off of open source tools. That it has the ability to install some not open source tools, right there, as people work with them. But the environment itself is open source. And what has happened was, instead of it just being one tool, the environment, it's now grown into a much bigger collection where the Samurai WTF project covers everything from the a live environment that you can test in and learn, to a control tooling that we call Katana, because we're trying to keep with a theme. Why not, right? And so Katana is a collection of scripts to help you install and manage the tools and target environments that you want to use. We also have, and this is the newest addition to the Samurai project, is a tool called Wayfarer. And Wayfarer is a collection of vulnerable apps, similar to OWASP JuShop or OWASP DVWA or OWASP Matilda. I feel like we've said OWASP enough times in this sentence. And so what Wayfarer is instead of it just being a single vulnerable app, and I'll pick on DVWA. We all know OWASP DVWA, the damn vulnerable web app. It's a great little project. It's good for learning, but bad for learning. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not trying to bash another project, but it's probably not hard to figure out what vulnerability exists on a page called SQLinjection.php, right? So when you're learning, what I find is that's great the first time you try to do something, or the first time you're exploring SQL injection or whatever. But now here's the problem. You finish this, you're now an expert. You're the best AppSec person in the world. But you go to test a real world application. and they don't have a SQL injection.php file. They don't have a cross-site scripting.jsp file, right? And so what we find is not that people aren't learning right, but they're not getting the experience with real apps. So Wayfarer, which is part of Samurai, Wayfarer is a real world application. Now we're goofy. The project team for Samurai, we are a bunch of nerds. I mean, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I have a Star Wars figure, life-size, behind me, if you're watching the video, right? So I have a life-size Chewbacca in the other room. I am nerdy as anything. Wayfarer is a collection of space pirates. So like, for example, one of the pages we're building right now is the online presence for Wayfarer, where if you want to hire the space pirates to plunder or get revenge for you, there's the app, right? And so the idea is inside of Samurai, you have a complete application environment with all the different types of apps that a real organization would have. And now you have to go find the vulnerabilities. And the benefit of doing that instead of just installing WordPress or whatever is we know the vulnerabilities exist, right? And so we know they're there. Now we go find them, and it makes that easier. So that is, I feel like I've just babbled a ton of stuff about the Samurai project, but that's what we're doing. We've got this, if I may say so myself, it's a very stable, excellent project, but I am biased, that you can install right now. You can download a VM of it. You can also, if you would like, pull down Vagrant files, and then it will generate a live environment inside of your virtualization. So if you're using Hyper-V or VirtualBox or whatever, it all works. So I think I just babbled a ton.
Let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and share the screen and see how it works.
Yeah, sure. So let me share. Let me make sure that I'm doing the right thing. That is the right one, I think. So can you see my this window right here that says 1822?
Right.
Okay, good. So this is, I'm running this in Hyper-V just because that's the environment I'm on right now. Let me move this because this is the one problem. I have a very large monitor. So when Zoom went full screen, it put you way over there. So I just moved you. So this is it. And all you do is come in here. And this is actually a funny anecdote. When we first released Samurai, we released it, but we never told anybody the password. And so we released this thing, and then everybody was like, hey, by the way, how do I log in? It's really difficult. The password is Samurai. So not very secure, right? But you log in and you come to a Linux desktop. It's that simple. And Samurai supports, if you're running it in a virtual machine, it supports running in VirtualBox, Hyper-V, VMware Fusion, Parallels. We also have versions that run in Azure and AWS. So we find that many people, their corporate networks or whatever, they're not able to install it directly. They can actually run it in some cloud providers as well. And the project has the files necessary to do that. It's all built in. So once you get in here, it's very simple. You're able to come in and run applications. One of the first things, when you first install it, you come in and you open up a terminal, and we have a tool called Katana. And Katana, remember I said that was the control tool? So by default, to make it easy for people, when Samurai first installs, whether you do it by downloading a VM that's pre-built or using Vagrant, none of the attack tooling, test tooling, or vulnerable targets are installed. It's a blank slate at that point. And then you're able to install those tools. So the first thing that you would do is you would come in here and say Katana list. And I'm assuming, do I need to make that font bigger? I realize that it's perfectly fine on my screen, but that doesn't mean it's good in the recording. So if you say Katana space list, it actually asks you the password because it does use sudo to run. And it gives you a list of tools that it can install. So you can install Katana itself, which sounds redundant or recursive, but we actually have a web interface for Katana to make it easier for some people. And then you have a series of tools that you can install. And then all you would do is you would say Katana install, and then you would say something like SQL map, and you would press enter. And it literally goes out to GitHub and grabs the latest copy of Katana or SQL map or Zap or a series of word lists. You can also, and I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to launch Firefox. And in here, it tells me there's an update. It automatically launches. And because Katana is running, right? And I should have shown you that. I'm sorry. You can actually say Katana start Katana. So any app, I can't spell, right? And if you do that, it actually runs and it tells you it's already running because I started it before I got on here. And then what you've got is you actually have this control tool. It's not the fanciest thing in the world, but it lets you know Juice Shop is running and it's installed. You can stop it here. Or we have DVWA. It's stopped, but it is installed. So we can start it, right? We can also force it stopped or uninstall it. Or we can add tools. So like RSpace is another project. This is not part of Samurai, but RSpace is a Kubernetes cluster that has an app running in it that is vulnerable, that was created. Well, Kubernetes clusters run apps. OWASP is app-centric. We added the ability to install this if you wanted to learn about Kubernetes and vulnerabilities there. And all you do is you click the install button. I'm not going to do that right now, but right. And then all of these things are running. And then once you get there, you're actually able to come here and say, okay, let's open Juice Shop. Of course, I'm configured to use Zap, so I should probably run Zap. This is the problem, right? You do a live demo and you forget steps. So I had already installed Zap, the Z attack proxy by Simon and his team. And by the way, if you're not using Zap, you're missing out. The interface is great. The tooling is great. It does take a little bit to launch inside of this VM the first time. And this says, hey, I'm not going to persist this because we're just demoing some stuff. And I'm not going to grab the new version because, again, I'm just demoing some stuff. And then here, we can come here and say, go there. Now, because I have not installed the certificate for Zap in this system, it gives me this warning. And I actually thought about fixing this beforehand. But what we find is everybody runs into this error and they panic. There's two ways to fix this. One, you can install the certificate, or two, you can simply say, accept the risk and continue, right? Now, in a real world scenario, don't click accept the risk and continue. I'm doing it because I'm demoing this, right? And so you have access to all of these tools, all of these targets. And so we can come in here and we can say, you know what, I'm logged in as kevin.johnson@owasp.org. Yes, that is my email at OWASP. Oh my gosh, I revealed private information. And we can come in here, we can add it to the basket, and everything is coming in to Zap. Now, I want to be clear, Zap is not part of Samurai's project. It's another OWASP project. It's a flagship project. I would assume you have a great video already with Simon and his team about his project, but you're able to use it. So that is Samurai. At this point, everything else that you do inside of Samurai is simply a matter of learning how to use the tools. We do have an open source. We have two different open source web app security classes. One is called the PE-WAPT that we released a few years ago. And then the Samurai project itself has a 2-day course. We call it a 2-day course. It's because when we ran it, like at Black Hat and stuff like that, we ran it for 2 days. You could take however long you want. But the slides are actually available on the Samurai project website. And you can pull down that if you've never done web pen testing before. Those two classes will actually show you step by step how to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is really great. Like we are integrating
so too, but
multiple
we're biased.
projects.
Yeah, well, see, and one of the things that we realized when we started Samurai, and you and I have chatted about this, right, is that OWASP has so many different projects, and people, most people, myself included, right, when I came to the OWASP project, the OWASP organization, and found out about it the first time, I think the top 10 was the project I had heard about first, or it might have been Web Scarab. Do you remember Web Scarab? Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I learned about those projects, and then every time I go to the OS website, it's like, oh man, I didn't know that was there. Oh my gosh, that's new too, right? And so one of the things we've tried to do at Samurai is collect the tooling that OWASP provides that is focused on application security testing, and give you an easy way to install it with one big qualifier. It's an easy way to install it and use it without running the risk of accidentally attacking something you're not supposed to attack, right? By having these targets, by having this environment, it's a self-contained environment, right? So when you're doing stuff, you don't have to worry about, okay, did my ISP freak out because I did SQL injection attacks across the internet? No, because you didn't do them across the internet. You did them inside this VM. So it's a safe learning environment. Because it's a virtual machine, it doesn't impact your host machine. So there's no chance of accidentally installing, oh, I need this version of Python for this tool, but that conflicts with the version of Python that's on my workstation, right? That it doesn't matter because it's all self-contained. So
this is totally amazing. And so anyone can download it from OWASP website. So where exactly it is?
It's, oh my goodness, what is the URL for it? It's under the projects, and it's literally just the Samurai WTF project under OWASP. Or if you go to GitHub, which is where our repository is, it's github.com/SamuraiWTF, right? And that's one word. A lot of people put a dash between the Samurai and the W, and I don't know why that doesn't belong there. And yes, the WTF was a rude comment because we thought it was funny. I'll admit it.
Okay. And how people can help the project?
Oh man, we would love help. We've got so many things we're working on right now. Like I said, the Wayfarer project, part of the project where we're building out all these apps. We need help with people who can help develop those different pieces and things like that. Another thing that we would really like to see, we talk to a lot of people who they're like, oh, I want to work with open source, but I don't know how to write code. And I'm always like, who cares? There's so many other things. One of the things we would love is people who could help test the build process and document errors that happen. And remember, I said the build process is just Vagrant, but what we have found is different versions of virtualization and different operating systems, Vagrant runs differently. And so we run into bugs that we can't troubleshoot because we don't have that current version. So like, for example, we had somebody report to us that if you were running the French version of Windows, the build failed, and we did a release and it fixed it, but nobody actually knows how we fixed it. And I'd rather not admit that, but so we'd love that. We're also trying to build and release more of that educational content, things that say, hey, okay, I've installed Zap. What do I do to start? How do I handle this? That's all part of the project we're trying to do. So anything from documentation writers to developers to people who know how to configure Linux environments better. One of the things that we've had some issues with is because we're pulling so many different projects that we don't control, changes in those projects break our ability to install them. And that we're constantly trying to troubleshoot that kind of stuff. So that would be awesome as well.
Sure, absolutely. I'm sure this is one of the projects where colleges can contribute a lot, and the people who want more students to grow in cybersecurity area. I am totally fascinated by this. I'm sure I'm going to demonstrate this in my trainings, and I would love to share my inputs as well for the project.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I will also point out, you can always email me, but
Mhm.
the entire project team hangs out in the OWASP Slack workspace.
Mhm.
And we have Samurai WTF as a channel, and you're able to go in there and talk to us and
Mhm.
submit suggestions. Even if all you're going to do is say, "Man, your project sucks." Okay, tell us how. Tell us what we can do to fix it. Right? We like the feedback. Well, we
Mhm.
prefer the feedback not to be the project sucks, but if you've got feedback of a way to improve it, whatever, see us in the Slack channel.
Superb. I think this is totally amazing. And all the information that you shared, I will share the link in the comment section and in the video. So
Thank you.
I am sure there are a lot of people who are going to reach out to you after this.
I appreciate it. Awesome.
Correct. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining me today. It was wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.